we'll ask questions around how healthy their portfolio is. So does the company report the percentage of healthy versus unhealthy products in their product portfolio? Who's accountable for those targets? Does their corporate strategy outline how the company intends to improve that portfolio over time? Also, the healthiest sales. So does the company report on the percentage of sales from healthy products?
Hello and welcome to this special video interview with Sophie Lawrence, Stewardship and Engagement Lead at Rathbone Greenbank Investments. Thank you for joining us, Sophie.
Thanks, Natalie, for having me.
So recently, Sophie's been taking a closer look at the state of health and nutrition in the UK, the role that the foods and drinks industry play in shaping public health, and how investors can create positive change, which will be the focus of today's interview. So firstly, I want to ask Sophie, at the macro level, how is the current state of health and nutrition in the UK important from a responsible investment perspective?
So I think, when I'm thinking about this, I really like to group it into three different buckets. So firstly, there's the risks, which are really important. Then there's the opportunities. And then importantly as well, there is the moral and social imperative to act. In terms of the risks, health poses direct and indirect risks to company bottom lines. So there are clear direct risks to certain industries or product categories from regulatory intervention, including kind of regulation that's been announced in the past year by the government, which will ban checkout sales of unhealthy foods and stop bulk buy offers. And that has been delayed by a year, but is a sign really for as kind of more and more regulation to come in the coming years. But there's also that wider system impact of obesity, and that's another kind of part of the risk for us. And that's when we think about how health is really important to the wider economy. So how are higher rates of obesity impacting the workforce due to increased sick leave? Then there's the opportunity side. So it's really important that we also think about that. There's been a shift in consumer trends towards healthier products. So we're seeing increased demand, for example, for plant-based food. And there's also that system-wide opportunity because better health could add up to 12 trillion to global GDP by 2040. And finally, there's that moral and social imperative. So as sustainable and impact investment specialists, we really care about that because of the significant impact that poor health is having, not only on the individual, but also the pressure that that's putting on our health systems. And just a couple of kind of brief stats to really bring that to life. So poor diets currently account for an estimated 1 in 7 deaths in the UK, and 2 in 3 adults in the UK are either overweight or obese. And I think it's really important just to mention as well the wider context here and why it's maybe more in the spotlight right now than it ever has been. We've got soaring food costs from inflation, and the impact of that is being felt harshest by the poorest in society. And also we've had the COVID-19 pandemic, which has further exposed the need to tackle poor diets. And we've seen that link between higher mortality rates where there's been higher incidences of people being overweight or obese. So those are the kind of three buckets that we look at this through.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because lots of people don't make those connections between how our health and nutrition and how we can invest in that for better. So how do you believe investment can help shape our food environments and better health?
Yeah, so I think, at Greenbank, how we think about it, if we have access to data on the company exposure to the risks that are facing the food industry, we can then make decisions about how to allocate capital. And you can really take a kind of active approach to your share ownership and engage with these companies. So just to give some examples of the questions that we ask through the engagements that we do, we'll ask questions around how healthy their portfolio is. So does the company report the percentage of healthy versus unhealthy products in their product portfolio? Who's accountable for those targets? Does their corporate strategy outline how the company intends to improve that portfolio over time? Also, the healthiest sales. So does the company report on the percentage of sales from healthy products? And I guess another way, there's that direct engagement with companies, but there's also other tools that investors have. We've seen a lot of investors use shareholder resolutions on this topic. And actually, interestingly, in the past year, We've had multinationals including PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, Kraft Heinz, Kellogg, Nestle, Tesco, and Unilever, all targeted with nutrition-related resolutions. We haven't been part of many of those given the nature of our we don't have those holdings in our portfolio, all of those, but I think this is a real signal that there is increased investor interest in this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely seeing increased shareholder activity, and certainly more so, as you said, in the food and health industry. But can you tell us some of the engagement work that Greenbank has been doing on the topic of health and nutrition? What are the conversations like?
We've had this as a core engagement priority at Greenbank for a number of years now. It began with our work around the sugar tax back in 2017, and really looking at the kind of implications of that. And it's more focused on sustainable, more recently, focused on sustainable and healthy food systems. And we've done that through a number of collaborative forums. So firstly, the Share Action's Healthy Markets Initiative, which is really focused on childhood obesity in the UK. And brings together investors to engage with both retailers and manufacturers. We've also done it via the Access to Nutrition initiative, and that's really focused on over and under nutrition at the global level. And we've also been very involved with Food Foundation's Plating Up Progress initiative. And that's really been focused on how do you standardize nutrition and environmental disclosures from companies in the food sector. And I briefly mentioned the shareholder resolutions, and actually we were part of co-filing the resolution at Tesco back in 2021 on behalf of some of the Rathbone Greenbank clients, and that was led by Share Action. And what that resolution did, which is interesting for us to kind of think about and explore, very similar to the other ones that have been bought, was to ask the company to disclose the share of total food and non-alcoholic drink sales that are made up of healthy products, and to publish a target to increase that share. And we were really delighted to see that Tesco released an ambitious healthy food strategy in response to that resolution.
Fantastic. It's really good to hear that you've had some progress on the back of that work that you've undertaken. I also understand that you've been engaging with the UK government following the publication of the National Food Strategy. Can you briefly tell us a bit more about that?
This was the first independent review of England's food system in 75 years, conducted by Henry Dimbleby. And that produced a plan with a series of recommendations. And we were really interested in what those recommendations were and how investors might be able to get involved in pushing for certain recommendations. And we initially organised an investor briefing with the National Food Strategy team. And up until then, investors had not been engaged, and there wasn't any framework in place for any investor policy dialogue on this issue. And we were really surprised by the investor interest really in this, and it kind of snowballed from there. We wrote a letter to the UK government back in December, and this was around one of the key takeaways in the National Food Strategy, which was that a much more robust reporting framework is required. And the strategy specifically recommended developing mandatory reporting requirements for large food sector companies to report on their products, sales, and also food waste. And we built a really big coalition around this. So the letter was signed by investors representing over 6 trillion in assets under management. And we've had a lot of support as well from the Food Foundation and Guy's and St Thomas's in really kind of building momentum around this. And why mandatory reporting? So we really think this is important because we're currently in a place where we don't have consistent data reported by companies. And that means it's really difficult as investors to understand the performance across different companies and understand the risks, really. We've talked about that already today, as well as which companies are really playing a leading role in improving health. So that's what we've been pushing for. And since sending the letter to the UK government, we've been having productive meetings with government ministers, but also members of DEFRA and the Department for Health and Social Care, really kind of wanting to make sure that investors can collaborate going forward with government on this. And hopefully this is also a model for kind of broader food related engagement as well.
Fantastic. It's good to hear so many different parts of the industry and the economy all talking about this and working together. And I look forward to hearing an update from you as well.
Thanks a lot, Natalie. Yeah, look forward to speaking again soon.